Letter from an attorney for the Maplewood development. This is a project where they want to build roughly 90 units behind Salesian Park. This has been in the works for a while. They originally wanted more than 90 units, but the town changed its zoning, and there was some litigation between the town and this development that they finally settled on, I want to say 90 units. It could be a little more, could be a little less, but that's still up now. And they are right next to the village. It's town, but it's bordering the village, but it's next to Salesian. They are looking for sewer and water service. Water, they have wells on site. So that's something that I think that we can hold off on, because the question is if they want to talk to us about water and provide water to the village. I think that's intriguing, but I don't think we have enough information at this point to move anywhere. But they also want sewer service, which, at least from my perspective, I would like to provide them sewer service and get the customers. And the only other thing I'll say about this development, Maplewood, is they're being represented for their engineer by Art Tully. So any work that we do moving on this for engineering-wise, we're going to have to get an outside engineer to work on, just because there's a conflict. Art's recommended McGooey and Hauser. I've worked with Dick before, and he's a great guy. So we might want to bring him on. That's not something we have to decide tonight. But we can't use Art Tully for this project because he also represents this development. So I guess I'll open it up. Do we want to provide a letter to this development that we will give them sewer service?
As far as I see it, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I know Dick Gonzalez.
The only question, has this been approved?
They're in the approval process right now within the town. They were on hold because they were in litigation over the number of units they wanted to put in, and now they're still in the approval process. So it's moving forward. It's going to get approved. The town's been talking about it. It doesn't have final approval yet, but it's going through the pipeline right now. So I would like to be able to send them just the kind of general letter that they're asking for. You're just saying, yes, we will provide you sewer service, because I think part of their approval is getting,
right,
sewer service from us.
I thought that was one sentence in this letter that was kind of interesting, where he asks as an attorney whether the village has the legal authority to provide him with such a service.
Yeah.
But I guess he doesn't know. But
either way, if the board's in agreement, tomorrow I'll have David
sure.
Draft letter back to them, or I'll make a call or provide a letter. But I think they just want something in writing they can show. So
right.
I would like to do that.
And I was just going to say before that I dealt with Dick going in the past. And, he's a very competent engineer. That would be fun.
Would it be something similar, excuse me, that we offered to Walker in terms of, our rate structure, probably plus 5%, and then equal assessments of whatever our village revenue effect?
The biggest thing is with users outside the village, similar classes have to be treated the same.
Right.
If you have one new development of residential units, another new development of residential units, they need to be treated the same way.
Right, but we were all comfortable with the plan with Walker, so it'd probably be similar.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I want to do a budget update real quick. I finally sat down with Mike Canary today, and we put together what should be a final budget. And I'm just going to go through and mention the things that we had talked about today, where we were actually able to cut, clearly, in my opinion, a significant amount. One of those things was justice equipment. We had budgeted $11,000 for justice equipment, and that was to buy a new computer for Lead upstairs. That computer crashed last week, and Lead was actually able to get a new computer from the state with no cost to us.
Oh, okay.
So instead of $11,000, we're just going to budget $1,000 there. The next one, we have treasurer, personnel services, and treasurer clerk. And we're going to talk more about these two items in executive session, about that position. But just numbers-wise, the treasurer, personnel services has been brought down to $44,000 from $62,000. And the treasurer clerk has been brought down to $12,000 from $32,000. And that's something we'll talk about in executive session, and I'll explain where we got those numbers from and the direction I'd like to go in there and get everyone's thoughts on that. So that saves us a substantial amount of money. In addition to that, engineer baseline, we have $27,000 budgeted. We had $27,000 budgeted last year. When this was created, we were less than $10,000. A lot of that's because our engineer, when he does work for us, it's either usually related to water or sewer. And that comes out of those funds, not the general fund. So we don't really need $27,000 in the general fund for that. So that's been brought down to $15,000. Building repair, it was budgeted $25,000 last year. We spent less than $12,000. This year, budgeted $25,000 again. And I spoke to Ed about this. $25,000 in land and everything. It's a lot of money, and we can save money. We decided to bring it down to $10,000, just because there's a million things we could do in here. But if we can save money now, we really need to, that's the idea there. At the bottom, central garage miscellaneous expense, we had 15,000 budgeted. We erased that line item because anything miscellaneous from an auditor's perspective is bad to have in there. You want it to be crystal clear where the money's going.
Yeah.
So that line item has been eliminated. Police overtime, it was at 129,000. Ed agreed to this, and based on what he's...
I think we're trending this year.
Yeah, so it's down to 110,000. So that was, last year it was close to 160K. This coming year we went down to 110K.
That was the budgeted amount, the 160.
Yes, correct.
So it's going to come in more around that 110 number.
Right, and a lot of it, there's all the police negotiations. Do you want to speak to that real quick?
Well, it's because we freed up the ability to use part-timers a lot more now. We have 3 now, we do have the last year of the contract to hire a 4th. We pay them a fraction of what we would pay people at time and a half to be on overtime.
Obviously, they have no benefits.
And they have no benefits, currently part-time, it's, kind of the same as you and I know per diem work,
Yeah.
Doesn't use it for grades and things like that, which is a huge savings.
I know moving forward this year, one of the things I'm going to try to do is talk to county towns to get more of their personnel to help out with the parades and things like that. So hopefully less overtime falls on our crew alone. Police auto parts, that was at 16, because we're not buying those cars, that's going to be at 20 now, because they're going to need to make more repairs. Police electric, we brought down to 2,000, just based on what's being used. Police clothing, it was budgeted 4,000 for initial issue, but we're not going to be hiring anyone except one, maybe part-timer, so we don't need 4,000 there. We're comfortable with that. We cut office supplies and telephone for safety, building inspector department, just by a little bit. Main Street catch basin and DPW, that was at 5,000, we're bringing it down to 3,000, because last year's budget 5,000, but we're still only slightly above 2,000. Micro seal for DPW, originally it was requested 75, we brought that down to 10, and then really when you learn, the more we learned about it, you can't halfway micro seal, it's not like you just micro seal 10,000, it's all or nothing, so that 10,000 was taken out as well. Outside of that, planner, for Stu Turner, our planner, last year we talked about OBH, we talked about religious land use, we talked about all sorts of things. This year we aren't going to have the same needs, so instead of 20,000, we're going to do 10,000 there. And refuse and garbage dumping fees, because we have single stream recycling now, the dumping fees will go down a little bit, so we were able to shave off some money there. Outside of that, that's it. When all is said and done, and being able to budget for what we have, we'll have in reserve, the money that's owed to the general fund from sewer, right now we can get it at 9.8% increase, down from 15. So we're at 9.8. The only way to really go anymore is out of that 9.8, over 7% is those things that we can't do anything with. And that's just the health insurance, the medical, retirement, and disability. So that's 7%. So the rest, that 2 and change, is going to be the salaries and things like that in here. Increase in electric and all those things. So right now we're 9.8. And with 9.8, we don't have the huge fund balance that we'd like to have. But once we get the money paid back from the sewer fund next year, we'll be in a little healthier shape. Next year, we're also not going to have any payments to pay obsolescence, because this is the last year we're paying obsolescence, so that'll free up $75,000 in next year's budget as well. But it's my opinion, talking to Vineri today, the lowest we can get it while staying fiscally responsible is 9.8%. And that would give us, do you remember what Nadi said would be left in our reserve? 80,000? Okay. Yeah, it's our reserve isn't as much as we want it to be. If we wanted to get it below 9.8, it would mean decreasing that reserve even more, which is dangerous in case, some unforeseen expense comes up.
Well, the only, and I talked to you about this earlier today, maybe you can ask Mike about this, get his opinion on it. I'm not married to it one way or the other. The town owes us neighborhood of $180,000 for the back sewer charges that we've held over the last 2 years, which I believe will come in this year between now and, by this year I mean between now and the end of May of 2012, within the next fiscal year. Can we put, because that money should then be repaid to the general fund, or at least some portion of it?
Yes.
Can we put some of that in the revenue side? It's not necessarily all of it, even let's say 80,000 of it.
I have to see.
I don't see it in the sewer budget, that's what I'm looking at right now.
In the revenue side?
Yeah, I don't see it.
I guess the concern is, and I feel good about arbitration, but we don't know how it's gonna go.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, if in the case, let's say we budgeted on the low end, what we think is $100,000, for whatever reason, we lose arbitration and we get nothing.
Right.
Then we would have to deal with that shortfall at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I foresee us doing a lot of arbitration. I feel good about it. I think we have a strong case, as does council. But I wouldn't feel safe budgeting just based on, you know, us being optimistic about arbitration. And just, you know, because if we, let's say arbitration takes even longer than we anticipate, I don't think it will, but, you know, but it's within the realm of possibility that it takes longer. If we don't get that in, or if we get in less than that, then we might be in trouble. I'll ask Maneri.
Yeah, it's fine about that. That's why I'm saying be conservative and just take a piece of it, not the full 180,
Right.
just a piece of it. I would never want to go the full 180.
Right.
But I agree with you on what you're saying.
Well, it's not 180 either, because you're, 2010, it's 250.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, whatever the number is now these days, that's what I'm saying. I don't think 80 might be, I think 80 might be a safe thing to put in there.
I don't disagree in theory, but I'll talk to
Mike about it, because that, you know, because that's 2 percentage points, basically, rule of thumb being 1 percentage point for every 40,000, roughly speaking. And that would then get us to 7.8.
Right, which would be nice.
Which would be nice. So let's see what he thinks about maybe just putting 80 in up to 250. That's, you know, we're talking about 30% on the dollar, which I think we would at least achieve in arbitration. I'm sure we'll achieve a lot more than that, but not the full load.
I agree, and I'll look into that. I just know with that 9.8%, we've truly cut everything that we could cut while still providing the services.
Oh, yeah, the expense side, I think we've done as best we can, no question about it.
I think we've all spent a lot of time on this. The costs that are coming in, for the most part, we under control. Whether it's retirement, or medical, or disability, I mean, that's a lot of money that we have no say on. And it's unfortunate, but I think moving forward, we're going to be mindful of that and do things to try to generate more revenue and cut our expenses. Given the fact that this budget originally came in at 20%, we got it down to 15, and now it's down to 9.8, is positive. Well, I mean, I think we'd all like to know nothing less.
I assume while we're discussing this and getting the accounting side of the village trustee / commissioner of finance, there's no ethical issues or anything of that kind of, from your point of view, as far as allocating that money that we don't have?
No, because part of the sewer system is to repay the general fund. So if we can accelerate that repayment, then maybe in a year or two, even if we can clip $10 a quarter off of the sewer system, wonderful. It's the same thing. At least the way I see it. Again, maybe it's something we also need to run by David as well, besides that. But otherwise, I don't see an issue there. We owe the money to the general fund ultimately at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, the general fund's going to get that money back.
Yeah, so it's a question of can we accelerate the fund? And if it's not already in the sewer, obviously we balance the sewer without it.
Okay, but, I mean, so we're not necessarily just anticipating getting money from the town, we're also anticipating that we're going to get money from the new assessment.
Right.
So one way or the other, we're talking about putting some of that
It's all
back.
the same thing, so we can accelerate the repayment of that. Because part of the assessment is actually, although we've been talking about 20 years, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not understanding this completely, is where we got that 100 was 100 per quarter. It was derived from a couple functions. It's the dirt pile. It's also some of the money we have to ultimately repay the general fund over 5 years. So some of that's coming off the books in 5 years anyways, off the assessment.
All right, so the
Roughly $10 a quarter.
if I'm understanding both of you correctly, then, for instance, the 483 that the sewer fund borrowed from the general fund, we're going to pay back over 5 years.
Right, but if we can accelerate that by applying some of the old money that's owed to us by the town that they've withheld over the last 2 years, we can accelerate that 5-year plan.
And also,
Just knock off, it would help, if nothing else, knock off $10 a quarter.
I mean, if the budget remains the way it is with regard to sewer income, we're going to pay off a portion of it this year.
Right, there's already a portion in.
Right.
Yeah.
In here, we have a little shy of $500,000 allocated for infrastructure improvements. We're going to do some in the next month or so. That's going to cost money. But if our study reveals we don't need to spend that much every year, if we, let's say, only spent $400,000 this year, and budget of $5, we might go pay back the general fund even more this year. That's how the other gets mentioned. So,
That was all the
So
questions.
that's what, yeah, we need to find out from Mike, because I don't even see in the sewer side is that money that the town owes us, which I believe we will get within the next 13 months. Arbitration will be over by
Well, and I think.
You would think so.
I
Based on
think
experience, I would say it should be.
common sense tells you, I mean, there's been some discussion when this has been bandied around in the last couple of years, you know, about us losing or not going as favorable as we expect. But at the end of the day, they can't owe us nothing.
Right.
They're going to owe us something. It's just a question. It's going to be between
Is it
know,
what
some
they think
number
is zero,
and- yeah.
or what we think is $250 now,
Right.
roughly?
Yeah.
You're certainly going to owe us some money.
That's why I say 80, I think, is, I'm talking about 30 cents on the dollar, is being very conservative.
Okay.
I agree with
Let's
that.
talk to Mike, and I'll get an answer on that, and talk to David, and if we can do it, and we can bring it in at 7, 8, roughly speaking, going with that rough rule of thumb.
And basically, obviously, I saw your presentation yesterday to the chamber. All those very large costs that you displayed there for the health insurance and the pension fund, all that stuff, that 7% is obviously, so the public understands, that's just, can't touch it. It's there, and it's what it is.
Yeah.
We have our workers' compensation and our, you know, our health insurance.
Retirement's the big one.
Retirement's the big one.
Close to 200 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 200 grand in increase, right?
Really, what we're talking about is kind of.
One year, 2 years.
Or 2% gap, and that's really all the leeway we've got, is another 2%.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
So, we do any? Okay. No, I'm good with it.
We drove your kids out here.
They got bored.
We told them it was going to be boring, and I guess they realized.
They realized it.
Yeah, last item is just the executive session over personnel.
So moved.
Right, yeah, so
Yeah,
make a motion to go into
Yeah.
executive
Move it
session.
to executive session. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Not gonna do
Going into
anything else?
executive session.
Oh, yeah.